Hey there, everyone. I'm going to make a video here showing you how to do PPC curves. PPC stands for Production Possibilities Curve. It's also sometimes abbreviated PPF for Production Possibilities Frontier. So that's sort of an abstract terminology, but we're going to use an economic model here that's a very simplified model and try and figure out graphically what is going on, and that's going to allow us later on, probably in a future video, to explore some more advanced concepts like opportunity cost and gains from trade. So I'm going to start with the graph of the PPC and how to do so. So we're going to assume here a individual, Robinson. He's going to be stranded on a tropical island over here. In this model, it's very simplified. There are only two goods. Okay, so Robinson presumably needs to eat to survive on this deserted island. He can spend his time, right? He only has so much time in a day, either gathering coconuts right here to eat, or he can fish. Now he doesn't. He's been shipwrecked on this island. He doesn't have any tools other than his own labor and his hands, right? So it's very difficult for him to be successful, right? Fishing with your bare hands is often difficult. Climbing the trees to gather coconuts is also difficult. But how would we graphically represent? You see down here, he can also spend some combination, right? He can spend some time gathering coconuts and he can spend some time fishing. So down here is what we need to sort of draw our PPC. If he spends his entire day harvesting coconuts, he can gather 15 coconuts. Okay, but then he didn't spend any time fishing, so he would have 0 fish in that case. Or he could spend his entire day fishing, and with his bare hands, he can catch 5 fish. That's actually pretty impressive. I don't think I could catch any. All right, so how would we represent this graphically? And again, being able to say that, well, he can spend some combination in between, right? He can spend half his day gathering coconuts or half his day fishing or some other combination of the two. And again, this is an oversimplified model. Most economies, there are far more than two goods, right? We can spend our time doing many different things. But again, from what we gather from the simplified model, then we can extrapolate into a sort of a larger economy, a more realistic realm. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we're going to draw a graph over here. Draw it as straight as I can. Okay, so you're going to put your two goods on the each axis, right? And it really doesn't necessarily matter which one you do. So I'm going to write coconuts up here and fish down here. And so both of these are a quantity. We can just abbreviate that quantity of fish and quantity of coconuts. Okay, so to find the intercepts for each, let's do coconuts first on the y-axis. All right, so if he spends his entire day harvesting coconuts, he's going to get 15 coconuts. Okay, so let's draw that intercept point here, and let's label that 15 coconuts. Okay, if he spends his entire day fishing, and when he has 15 coconuts, he had 0 fish, right? Remember, so in this case, it was 0 fish. And down in this case, it's 0 coconuts. Okay, so the intercept down here is 5 fish, right? If he spends his entire day, he can catch 5 fish with his bare hands. So if that's 15, 5's maybe about like this. Okay, so those are your 2 points, right? You can find where if he spends all his time getting coconuts, it's up here at 15. All his time fishing, it's at 5. But what about in between, right? What if he spends half his day doing one and half his day doing the other? Well, you just connect the points. And this is our production possibilities curve, right? So it's the total number of combinations and anywhere on this curve, Robinson could end up, right? And, we can figure out where these points are. But anywhere on that curve is a combination of coconuts and fish that he could consume, right, depending upon where he decides to spend his time and labor. Okay, so we'll leave that there and introduce the idea that a PPC can shift. So let's redraw our curve here real quick. So we've got the same thing, right? Coconuts, we've got fish. We had 15. We've got 5. Okay, so that was the original curve. Now, something's happened, right? So Crusoe and all his luck has found a fish hook on the island, right? A new technology that he can use, which increases productivity. Technology advances tend to increase productivity, generally speaking. And with a fish hook, Robinson can now catch 15 fish in a day instead of 5 previously. Or he can gather 15 coconuts, right? The fact that he has a fish hook doesn't help him with coconuts. So it makes him more productive at catching fish, but it doesn't do anything for coconuts. So what happened to the PPC? How would we represent this graphically? Well, all of a sudden, it's still 15 coconuts, but now he can catch 15 fish, right? So let's go somewhere out here about like that. And the new PPC has come out here. I don't really have much room to write that, but that's 15 fish. Okay, so you might represent this by drawing a short arrow showing how the PPC curve has shifted out. All right, so PPC curves can move. There has to be a reason, right? In this case, it's a new technology. Generally speaking, in a PPC, that's probably what we're talking about. Okay, so let's move on and introduce a new technology. So let's redraw our original PPC real quick. So we had 15 coconuts. We had 5 fish originally. Now, previously, right, we know that he has a fish hook. So Robinson found a fish hook. So this new intercept over here for fish was a 15, right? So we had our let's not draw the line, but in the last example, coconuts was the same, right? So the PPC had shifted out like this, and the line was here. Now we have a new technology, right? So Robinson has found a ladder on his tropical island. Now, what can you do with a ladder? Again, that improves productivity. It's not going to help him with his fish, right? A ladder doesn't help you catch fish, but it certainly could help you climb trees and harvest coconuts. So in this case, with the ladder, if he spends his entire day gathering coconuts, now he can gather 45 coconuts. Okay, so the new curve, let's put this up about here. Let's call that 45 coconuts. And come all the way down. So the new curve, right, with both technologies, with the ladder and the fish hook, is way out here. Okay, so when you see, and you might want to draw, sort of an arrow, or even two, just to emphasize, hey, the PPC, right, the possibilities of consumption, right, the bundles for coconuts and fish have increased, right? In any case, he's better off here with the new technologies. So PPC curves can shift, and this is how we represent that graphically. All right, let's add one more variable here. So let's say Robinson discovers there's someone else on the island. Let's call this individual Crusoe. So Crusoe is a very skilled fisherman and can catch 20 fish in a day, but can only gather 5 coconuts. Okay, so let's go back to the original scenario. So this is going to be Robinson. We've got coconuts, fish. So we're going to go back to the original scenario. He could gather 15 coconuts and 5 fish. And then we did some things where we shifted that curve outward with some new technologies. Okay, well, I can also draw a PPC curve for Crusoe. And then in the end, I'm going to actually put them sort of on top of each other. So let's do this first. Okay, so this is going to be Crusoe, coconuts, and fish. And again, we have the variables on the same corresponding axes. You could switch these around as long as you have the intercepts correct. So Crusoe has a different skill set, right? He can only gather 5 coconuts, so that's not very many. So that's way down here. But he's a very skilled fisherman, right? So he can catch 20 fish with his bare hands. That's impressive. Okay, so his PPC curve would look something like that. And what you can do is draw multiple PPCs on a single graph. It does tend to get a little bit crowded, so that's kind of why I drew them separately here, but let's just do that to finish out this video to show you what it would look like. Okay, so we've got fish, we've got coconuts. So our first curve, I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger up here. So this is not going to be perfectly to scale. 15 and so let's put that 5. So this was Robinson's original PPC curve. And then if we wanted to draw Crusoe's on there, right? So his intercept here would be 5 coconuts, 20 fish. Let's call it out here. Okay, so if I was doing this on paper, I might draw these in different colors, or you could sort of label them. That one's Robinson, and this one's Crusoe. But you can see how it can get kind of cluttered there. But the point is, we can draw multiple PPC curves on a single PPC graph. All right. So in a future video, we're going to use these PPC graphs to be able to calculate opportunity cost and also show gains from trade.